Information has played an extremely pivotal role when it comes to dealing with many aspects in today's world. And the value of information has been escalated to a whole nother level with the invention of the internet. With now information being spread instantaneously across the world, information has taken up a new resourceful value when it comes to dealing with human conflicts and human issues on a diplomatic level. With that all being said, the internet has created a new type of warfare from these diplomatic enrichments, which is cyber warfare. Cyber warfare has shown that countries are willing to deal with each other not through war and not through physical attacking, but through actual electronic warfare and to hinder the process of the other government. One person that has played a pivotal role when it comes to cyber warfare is Edward Snowden. Edward Snowden, on March of 2013, cited from a CNN.com article, leaked about 1.7 million documents relating to the counterintelligence initiative set up by the U.S. With this all being said, Edward Snowden was forced to flee from the U.S. as facing charges of treason to Russia, where he was successfully able to receive asylum. But now, in today's political stance, the EU now has a chance of letting Edward Snowden roam free throughout its territories. Which leads us to the imperative question of today. Should the EU charge Edward Snowden on treason committed by himself to the U.S. government and by cyber warfare crimes against the world? And the clear answer is no. In fact, Edward Snowden should be protected under whistleblower acts passed by many governments set up by the U.S. and the EU Council itself. This can be attributed to three main factors. First, we can analyze that the EU has set up the Council of the CDCJ to help deal with these issues in the first place. Second, we can also state that the nature of these leaks show that the EU should not be backing up the US when it comes to this position. And finally, we can see that the Whistleblower Act set up by the US government itself proves that the US is unlawfully chasing against Edward Snowden in the first place. But first, we must analyze the fact that bureaucracy has been playing an important role when it comes to dealing with human conflict. And now that Edward Snowden is roaming free within Russian territories, the EU Council has a decision to make. And they've even thought of this possible conflict happening within their territories in the first place by drafting a bill, the CM-REC version 7, on April of 2014, cited from the EU website itself. And on page 18 of this article, it shows that the EU, quote, is willing to protect its people from any form of cyber warfare as long as it guarantees their own basic rights that should not be infringed on. By doing this, the EU shows that its political goals with the US are just not aligned when it comes to dealing with these aspects of cyber warfare and crime in general. Second, we can analyze that history has developed new inalienable rights for people throughout the world. And with the US being a cornerstone of democracy and freedom, one might state that the US should not be infringing on these rights in the first place, even though it is with the NSA's PRISM program, which was shed to light through Edward Snowden's leaks. Cited from a Tech.com article written on April 2014, we can show that the NSA's PRISM program spied on not only the US's populous telephone phone lines, but the world's telephone phone lines in an effort against terrorism and to help speed up the war against terror. And while the noble pursuit of fighting against terror is something that can be commended, it can also be stated that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And this is very clearly true within the US, as basic rights are being infringed by the US across humanity, showing that the US is completely on the morally wrong side when it comes to dealing with this issue. This has even outraged many people throughout the world, showing that this is not just a personal opinion, but even an opinion shared by many people. This is shown through the Shanghai protests, cited from a BBC.com article written on April 2014, documenting how millions of Shanghai people protested against the US NSA PRISM program. This is mainly due to the Shanghai city having strong ties to the Western world compared to other Chinese cities, showing how the world is just not happy and how the US is dealing with the situation. And finally, we can see that throughout history, tyrannical governments have broken their own laws and acts that they've set up in the past to help stop conflicts like these. This is an example of the Whistleblower Act, set up on April 14th of 1984, showing that the US has thought of the situation in the first place and has decided to protect the commendable whistleblower through this act. But instead, the Whistleblower Act completely fails to do anything within the situation, cited yet again from a U.S. Constitution website, stating that the U.S. does not have the rights in the first place to even go out and chase Edward Snowden on a global position. This article was written on April of 2014 yet again. By showing this, the U.S. is unlawfully chasing Edward Snowden when it comes to the war on cyber warfare, giving more credible reason for the EU just not to charge him on these somewhat uncreditable charges. Finally, we lead back to the aspect of the EU finally having power when it comes to the political stage. The EU finally has a chance to assert its dominance among the political world, and this should be its opportunity when it comes to dealing with Edward Snowden. This can be attributed to three main factors. First, you can analyze the CDCJ Council. Second, we can analyze the moral issues apparent when it comes to dealing with Edward Snowden's leaks. And finally, we can see how the U.S. is unlawfully chasing against him in the first place, giving more of a credible reason for the EU to take a right chance, to make the right decision. With information becoming more of an important resource throughout today's world, it is a clear and cut choice that the EU should make the right choice of protecting humanity's rights and stating that the U.S. will not bend the EU's personal and political interests.